Welcome to this episode of Learn in Fusion. In today's episode, we're going to be covering using Cryptomattes within Fusion. And after that, I'm going to jump over to Blender and I'm going to cover some tips and tricks and some issues using Cryptomattes within Blender. So let's roll this intro and let's get into it.
We're learning Fusion together. We'll learn 2D stuff and 3D stuff and particle stuff and compositing stuff, deep pixel stuff and tracking stuff, but not other stuff, but some other cool stuff, cause we're learning Fusion together.
So here we are in Fusion, and I'm going to bring a loader in to bring in a multi-layer EXR. And if you want to use this EXR for members, if you jump over to the post and you look down a few months ago, there's going to be a node breakdown post for Cryptomatte Node breakdown. And within there, there's a download link for you members, so you can download these two files I'm going to be using. So I'm going to hit Shift Space at a loader node, and here we go. And these will be the two files you see. There's going to be one that says Scene Rough Cryptomatte Scene Main Layer, and one that says Scene Rough Cryptomatte Scene Main Layer Cryptomatte. And the first one I want to bring in is this just main layer one. And if we look at our little footage here, we look at our layers, you can see it's just a flattened layer EXR. And sometimes in the production world, you are going to get a file like this. It's not going to be all nice and pretty and broke down to individual layers, how it should be. But this is one reason Cryptomattes come in handy. And even when we're using like multi-layer stuff, Cryptomattes come in extremely handy. But let's go ahead and add a loader node, another loader node. And we're going to select this one that says Cryptomatte 001. And if we look at our Cryptomatte node here, this is what we're going to see. So this is kind of what a Cryptomatte looks like. And if we look at our layers, you can see we've got crypto user object IDs and a bunch of little IDs that are broke out. But unfortunately, we can't use these layers independently. So if I say select object 4, you notice we're really not seeing anything because Fusion doesn't know how to break these objects out correctly. And that's where the Cryptomatte node comes in. So after our crypto scene here, I'm going to hit Shift Space and add a Cryptomatte node. And just so you know, the Cryptomatte node is for Studio only. It's not in the free version, but when we jump into Blender, this is what I'm going to show you some workarounds. But if we look at our Cryptomatte node, and again, this isn't going to be a node breakdown. If you want to see the full node breakdown on Cryptomatte node, you can check out that video. But in general, this Cryptomatte node uses this object ID information that's coming from this multi-layer EXR, and it breaks it down into individual little Cryptomattes. So what we can do then is we can go select our mats. So if I select this pick node, I can go down and select which object ID I want to use on my Cryptomatte. So if I select 2 and hit OK, you can see it's that statue in the middle. Now, if I wanted to select all my statues, I can go to pick, and I can, I don't know, maybe 1 also, and hit OK. And there we go. We've got all our other statues. And I can pick both of them. So I can pick 1 and 2, 1 and 2, and hit OK. And it's got all of our statues in it. And this is what Cryptomattes do. So it's basically a rendered Cryptomatte of just those pixels that are around those individual elements. I can go here, clear them out. I can also use this little picker node. And if I want to just say pick the sidewalk, it's going to select that Cryptomatte. If I wanted to add another one, say these little vases here, I can select those. And now I've got those selected. So now on my original one, if I needed to do anything like adjust my color just on those, instead of having to mask and try to select all this stuff, I can just use this Cryptomatte and affect it accordingly. So for instance, or for example, we have the sky in the background. And let's say we wanted to change or animate the sky because it's not animated at all. We can go ahead and do that. And I happen to know on this Cryptomatte that this sky isn't included in a Cryptomatte because it was just a background image within Blender. So I could technically go here. Let's clear all these. I can select pick. and I can select all my objects, which are going to be my grass, my sidewalk, my wall, the trees. It's going to be everything in there except for our little sky background. So now if you see, we've got a Cryptomatte selected for everything in there other than the sky. So what we could do is, and to show that this is an alpha, we can go here, and if you look, we've got an alpha. So I can go to our little scene here, and let's go here. Let's add a merge, and let me find a little sky background. There we go. We've got a new little sky background. And let's actually, let's flip this. This is what looks a little weird. There we go. We've got it flipped, and there's our animated sky background. So I could bring this into the background. I can bring our little image into the foreground, and you notice we can't see our sky yet, but I could take our Cryptomatte node and use that in the little input there. So now we've got that weird sky animated. And if I wanted to, I could also go here, add a little color adjust node, and we can adjust that and make it a little yellowish orangish to match the scene. And there we go. We used a Cryptomatte to create a mask around our elements to change the sky. So that is pretty much it when it comes to using Cryptomattes within Fusion. And again, if you want an in-depth node breakdown, I do have a Cryptomatte node breakdown. So if you find that video, it's there. It'll teach you all about this node. So let's go ahead and jump into Blender so I can show you some stuff, because every single 3D program and every single renderer is going to do Cryptomattes differently. So there's no one way to export Cryptomattes, and there's no one way within each 3D program, depending on the render you're using, to do it as well. So for instance, this is Blender, and this is an old version of Blender because it's the only version that my Redshift still works on. So if I go to Redshift right here, and I go to my little object stuff, if I select my cube, if I look down here under my Redshift tab, I have Object ID and Crypto ID. So I can literally go in here and change this stuff. And when I render, which is how it was done in that example within Fusion, it's going to have those independent crypto IDs. So if I had another object, so let's do a little icosphere. Let's crank that and move it. If I had another object and I wanted to be the same Cryptomatte, I could change my object information and just change my crypto ID so they're both the same ID, or I can have them independently so they're their own little Cryptomattes. Unfortunately, if you're not using Redshift, which I will not be here shortly because Redshift stopped supporting Blender, so I'm going to cancel my subscription. But if you're working just with cycles or Eevee, in the Blender documentation, it says if we go to our little object information here and go to our relations and change our pass index, this is how we change our object ID. But I'm going to tell you right now, it does not work that way. So if I made both of these 0, they're still going to be independent Cryptomattes. If I change this to 1 or 2 or 3, it really doesn't matter when it comes to generating Cryptomattes. It's just going to be arbitrary and do its own thing within Blender. So it's going to be kind of a crapshoot of what you get as Cryptomattes when you just render them out. Now, if you say Google Cryptomattes within Blender, you're going to get a lot of stuff that shows you how to do your Cryptomattes within this compositing window right here when you're using nodes. But the only bad thing is with those, all it's generating is it's generating image files. So you're actually creating mats, which is okay. So if you want to create mats, you can use the Cryptomatte node within the compositing in here, and you can generate image maps or mats or masks, however you want to say it, that you can use within Fusion to mask out just the same, almost the same as this, but it doesn't operate within the Cryptomatte, because this Cryptomatte node is actually looking for object IDs generated from your renderer. So back to Blender. So if you want to generate that way, there's plenty YouTube tutorials out there on how to create Cryptomattes within your little compositing area of Blender. And it does work okay, but again, it's not generating true Cryptomattes. It is generating images, so a ping image or whatever type of image you want to generate that mask with. So how would you do it in Blender then if you want true Cryptomattes? So basically what I've figured out is your object IDs are based off your names. Now, once you start grouping stuff or adding new collections, your Cryptomattes aren't going to recognize those new names within those collections, as far as I've seen. So for instance, let's go ahead and just build this scene, and we're going to create a quick little Cryptomatte, and we're going to bring it into Fusion so you can see how it works. So we've got our square, we've got our little, let me look at our camera, and let's go to our render, and let's add some materials here. So let's just make this one yellow. Let's add a new one. Let's make this one blue. Let's go ahead and add a let's add a torus, and then we'll shade smooth. Let's change this color. We'll make it green. Let's go ahead and just add one more. We'll add a another cube up front here in front of our other stuff. And let's change this color to, I don't know, purple. So there we go. We've got our amazing scene. And let me actually go to our settings here. Change my max samples down to something smaller. Go to my film. I'm going to make it transparent. And sure, 1920 by 1080 is fine, but we're only going to do one frame, so we're not rendering everything out. Now, the key to getting your Cryptomattes out is going to be in your little file system here, or your view layers here. So sure, we'll use our combined, but our main thing down here is using our Cryptomatte. So if we select object, this is what Fusion is looking for, your Cryptomatte objects. Now down here you have this levels, so you can adjust how many levels of Cryptomatte you want. So if you have an extremely complex scene, you want to make sure you're slamming that up so you're getting all your Cryptomattes. But I have found whether I make this 2, it's still going to do individual Cryptomattes. Or if I make it 16, it's still going to do individual Cryptomattes. So I'm not exactly sure how this is really supposed to work, but I know it doesn't actually change your levels when I render anyway. So now if we look, we've got our cube 01, and let's go ahead and change that cube 01 name. So I'm just going to double click, and I'm going to name this cube Bill. So this cube is now Bill, and you're going to see that we are going to generate a Cryptomatte that is called Bill. And that's why I say this is what matters when we're generating our Cryptomattes. So let's go ahead and set up our little file here. And what we want is we want a multi-layer EXR. And let's go to our 3D. Go to our tutorials, Learning Fusion, Cryptomattes. We'll name this test. Test underscore. There we go. And I'm going to go to render, and I'm going to render my little animation there. And there we go. We've got our animation rendered. So now if we go back to Fusion here, and let me go ahead and just delete all this out. I'm going to add a loader node, and let's go to our Learning Fusion, Cryptomattes, test 01. If we look, we've got our little test image we just rendered there. Looks amazing. And if we look at our layers we have our combined. And then if you notice, we have these Cryptomatte objects. So if I add a shift space, Cryptomatte node, and let's plug it in and hope Fusion doesn't crash, because I often have a problem using Cryptomattes while Blender is open. Sometimes it crashes my Fusion, just so you know. Let's check out our Cryptomattes, and voila, look at that. We've got all of our Cryptomattes from Blender. So I can go through here and I can pick my little circle if I want. I can pick my square, my other square, my torus, And look at that, it's called Bill. So if I go up here and actually let me clear all. Go to my pick, you can see we've got our torus, our icosphere, our cube, and our Bill as our little Cryptomattes. So I can select Bill, hit OK, and Bill is now selected as our Cryptomatte. But again, going back to Blender, as I said, oops, there we go. It's difficult to manipulate your Cryptomattes. It's just kind of automatically going to ad hoc create them. And while you have a few objects like this, is great, but once you have some complex objects that are in collections with multiple objects within it, it's going to do some odd things with your Cryptomattes, and it's not going to be as simple as this. But I will say also, to alleviate a lot of this issues with Cryptomattes, generally, if you're using view layers and rendering view layers correctly within Blender, Cryptomattes are not going to be an issue because you're automatically going to generate your little alphas around each individual object. Meaning if I go to my little fusion here and let's look at our original image, and if I select our alpha, you can see we've got an alpha around every object. So if I independently export all my stuff out, I'm automatically going to have alphas around my individual objects, and Cryptomattes are not even an issue. So that's what I'm talking about. People with free versions, you don't even need that Cryptomatte as long as you're rendering from Blender using view layers correctly and rendering these all independently. And if you would like a tutorial on how to actually do that, if you all let me know, I'll create a tutorial on how to properly composite or render view layers independently. So when it comes to compositing within Fusion, it's correct on all of its separate individual layers. And you'll automatically have alphas instead of Cryptomattes. You'll have alphas around every single individual item. So that is using Cryptomattes within Fusion. I will see you in the next episode of Learning Fusion.